Hi everyone, my name is Ralph and today I'm going to give you a short and hopefully interesting review of my Kaabo Mantis. I got the black one and also a friend has the red one with the dual motor, mini motors display and the 24.5 ampere hour battery. I also got the single motor one, but this will be a separate review. So today I'm going to focus on the dual motor version. I have it since 1 week and this is not very much, yeah. So normally I would do this review a little bit later, but at least I have a comparison with a Dualtron Spider and with some other scooters which are lower quality, I have to say, yeah. And so at least I have a little bit of impression, and I've tried some things, and maybe some of these is helpful. I have to say I was really hyped after I saw the video of Crime 2 comparing the Kaabo Mantis with the Dualtron 3. And sadly I have to say it's really good. It's a really good scooter, but also there are some things that you don't know from first sight and that maybe has to be mentioned, yeah. So still, from my personal opinion, it is one of the best value for money, but on the other hand, there is a reason why the Dualtrons from Mini Motors are even more expensive. So I think they have better quality assurance, quality control, and some things are a little bit more thought about, yeah. So they make more sense. So the Mantis is really much about the design, yeah. You see here the black version, and I like the red one more, yeah. So it has this shiny Ferrari feeling. It's really cool, and the black one is much more decent. But I took the black one here because when you see a police or someone, so they say, oh wow, it looks really cool and really fast, let's take this one out and make a control. So it may be sometimes maybe better to not have the most fancy scooter around. So yeah, let's begin. I start with the top and then go to the bottom with the details, yeah, and then talk a little bit all around about yeah, how it drives and how it performs. So let's start with the display. This is typically the same as you have with the Mini Motor scooters. It is from Mini Motors, yeah. It's I really like it because you can easily see it in the sun, also as if it is dark. With the color displays, they are easily and very good visible when it's dark, but they are very hard to see if there's direct sunlight. So these monochrome LCD displays do a far better job with that. And what is a big benefit with the Mini Motors display is that it has the battery percentage. If it's totally correct or not is a different topic, but it has this, yeah. It has the settings to have 5 different levels of acceleration from the start. So with almost the same acceleration later on, you have to you can choose if you have a very instant start with wheel spin, or if you have a very soft start, which is better for beginners. And also you can set the electric brakes in 5 levels, which is really cool. I like the way it brakes. I have set it to level 3, yeah, which is more than enough. So you can if you just pull the trigger a little bit, yeah, with one finger, it really starts to break once you put it a little bit. You see it here, this exclamation mark on the top. Yeah, so a little bit is enough, and the physical brakes don't even break, yeah, but the electric brakes goes off, and you start to slow down very smoothly. And if you need a little bit more brake force, you just press it even more, and there you go, yeah. One thing that is common with most high power electric scooters is that the rear brake that you should use most of the time is on the left side. So the idea behind this is you don't have to use the same hand that you use to pull the throttle, the finger throttle, to brake. Yeah, so you use the other hand. What I do most of the time is that I just use the right hand and either shit. Funny thing, I usually use the start from zero, so you don't have to kick and then pull the throttle, but you can pull the throttle directly, which I did now to show how I usually use it, and that's something you should never do in this case. So yeah, I've set it back up, the scooter, and here we go again. What is different to the mini motor scooters is that you have here these it's called waterproof connectors. I don't know the exact name, but it has a big benefit. Yeah, so you have one cable going down, and if something goes wrong here, yeah, and you have a problem with these switches or with the display or something like that, you can just disconnect it here. You don't have to pull out the cable all onto the controller, which would be the case with a mini motors unit. Yeah, I mean, some things you can disconnect directly from the display also. Yeah, so that's also possible. But in this case, you have just the connector disconnected, get the other unit, connect it again, and you're ready. Yeah? So I think this is the better version. Yeah. Also, you don't have that much cables that go down. What is the next big difference is that the scooter is much higher than most of the mini motor scooters. So I have the Dualtron Spider, and the first version, it is really low, and I'm a tall person, so I'm 1 meter 93 centimeters, so really high, and I modified the spiders to get a little bit higher. But here with the Kaabo Mantis, I really don't have to do this. I can stay comfortable on the deck and reach the bar. It's really cool. You have to you can adjust it a little bit, because you can turn it so it's not that high. It's a little bit you see it better here, yeah. So it's a riser bar, yeah. It rises a little bit, and you can also use it different so that it doesn't have this rise, yeah. So that's really good. What is a really good thing, I didn't see it before, is that I have a bell here. It works really good. It's right here in the brake lever, yeah, integrated, and that is a really good idea. You don't have to put an extra bell on here. What I also like is the light switch up here, yeah, so that's also a really good idea. What is not that good is that this light switch has a very thin cable going down, and at least so what I've seen, all the current goes over this small cable, so you have much less power because it's all over one very thin cable, and this is not that good of an idea. what is okay are these grips. I think they look nice. They are okay. I've seen much worse. The grip of the Dualtron Spider, for example, it's really not good. Yeah, the standard grip. But on the other hand, I think most people will, if not for the design, and the design is good, yeah, but from anything else, you would change it to some custom grip that you like. It's very inexpensive to do so, so I think we'll change that. And I already have my preferred grips here, yeah, so they have much more. This is for the wrong hand, yeah, but they are much more comfortable and made of gum. They're rubber, yeah. This is foam, and they have much better grip and supports your hand better. But again, this is a matter of taste on one hand, yeah, and a matter of the size of your hands on the other. So it's really different. I'm tall, I have big hands, so this may be different. What also is interesting is that you have here the top where it clamps the handlebar, and this is for 22 millimeters handlebar. This is very, very uncommon, and I don't think this was a good idea. Yeah? So you maybe and I would have preferred if it was for something that's more standard, like 25.4, I think, yeah, or 28.2. These are the standard handlebar thickness. Yeah, so the handlebar usually is 22 millimeters in diameter, but the part that is clamped is thicker, and only a few motorcycle handlebars have this thickness, and they are much broader. So what this means is that the amount of replacement handlebars that you could instead use on the market is much smaller, and you have a very hard time to get a different handlebar. Mini Motors uses the 25 point something standard, and it's much easier to get replacement handlebars for a Dualtron. Yeah, you can put almost anything in there, and with the Kaabo, sadly, you can't. Yeah. The other thing that I don't need, but that would be nice, is if you had, like with Mini Motors, you had adapters here to make it higher or to change that, yeah, into something else. This is for the third-party providers, and I think this will come. Maybe they are already selling somewhere. I didn't see it, but this would be really nice. So why do I want to change the handlebar anyway? It has a good curve. I like it from how it feels, yeah. Except for the grips that I would change, but otherwise it's really good. But what is the drawback is that you see you have almost no space that is straight, yeah, straight horizontal space, and you would need that to put a light on here, yeah. So a light, or maybe for a GPS it's okay, you can put it on here, yeah, that with the cell phone. But for a light, you need something to attach it that goes straight, yeah. And this here is almost too small. So if you put something here, it looks like this. And the best thing you can do is have one light that can be tilted, so it looks a little bit like this. But why? Yeah, it could have had at least a little bit space that is straight. That would be much nicer. Yeah. The next small complaint is it's all so the Mantis it does many things really good. The main points, yeah, like acceleration, high handlebar, it doesn't squeak, it is really comfortable from the suspension, but it has some small points that could be just a little bit better. Yeah, so the clamping is good. This here is if you fold it, it will fit here in the rear into this clamp here, yeah, and you can carry the scooter which is nice, but there are other ways to carry it, so I will talk about that later. But what you see here in the details is that already just from moving this, the paint goes off. So the coating is, yeah, it's okay. I've seen it worse, but I've seen it better. So it's not that durable. On other videos from different people, from Michael Shah, from Crime2, if you look really close, you see that on many parts the paint already broke off like this, yeah. So it's not extremely durable, and you can, oh shit, you can scratch it off with a fingernail. You can't do that here because this is done differently, yeah. This here is the good quality paint. It's a different kind of painting, yeah. And this here is sadly the bad quality, and most of the chassis is done that way. So if you have a small scratch somewhere and so the paint goes off, this is not really good. The next thing I have to complain about is here these screws, yeah. They look normal. It's not something very special, but if you look from the side, what you see is that there is not much left to have the wrench attached to it, yeah. So actually what you can't do is tighten it, yeah. It's almost impossible, and it's so recessed that you can't reach it. And on the Dualtron, these are also recessed, but they are not that far back, and there is a washer besides it, and it's not so recessed, so at least you can screw and unscrew it. That's not really a good design choice. Okay, maybe it doesn't look that nice if they are 1 or 2 millimeters more out, but when they are like that, you can't screw them, yeah. That's not the sense of a screw. So yeah, this here, I really like that. This is the single cable that goes down to the controller, and per side there is also one braking cable. It's still a normal cable brake, so a semi-hydraulic brake, but they go off really good. I like how it feels. So together with the electronic brake, you can really brake extremely well. They are easy to brake with one finger and have a good stop. They are easy to maintain because it's relatively easy to set them up, because they are not from one side pushing the brake disc to the other brake thing, but they go together from both sides, yeah. So it's symmetrically, and it's far more easier to have a good setup on the brakes. Let's go down a little bit. Here you have the double clamp that holds the scooter, the handlebar stem, yeah. With the Mini Motors units, this would be a single clamp, with the Spider at least. The double clamp has benefits and drawbacks, yeah. So the good thing with the double clamp is it's far more easier to get a high clamping force, yeah. So when you shut one, yeah, the other one you can still screw it a little bit more and shut it also, and so it's easier to get the high force because you don't have to put all force into one closing, yeah. So this is from my perspective it is preferred, but it is really annoying if you actually have to open and lock it many times a day, yeah. So I think it's the best solution if you actually don't ever use it. So it really prevents handlebar wobble. That's really good. It's also, this clamp is higher, yeah. So Dualtron clamp is a little bit lower, and this one is, I think it is the better solution. But again, I don't use it anyway, yeah. So for me, a stiff handlebar stem would also be okay. Next thing that I have to mention is that this here, the handlebar stem, is thicker than it would be on a Dualtron. If you need the exact broadness, I can measure it, yeah. But it has a different size. So also some accessories that would work on a Dualtron don't work here. You have to keep that in mind. Let's go down a little bit more. Here you see what is really one of the best things of the Mantis. This spring here, it has a C-type shock absorber with a spring. You have inside the spring there's a screw from the bottom, and with this screw you can pre-compress the scooter suspension. So if you screw it in, it compresses it up front. So you have from the softer part of the suspension, you go into the middle part that is a little bit harder. So if it feels too soft, you can compress it a little bit. But you have to be aware of one thing, and that's very important. The Mantis suspension is very soft. So even the softest suspensions of a Dualtron are far more harder, and this makes a big difference in driving. It's like, when you see the Mantis, it's like a luxury car, and the Dualtron is more like a sports car. So this one here, you don't really feel unevenness or the stones or so if you drive over them, but the drawback of this is that if you really put yourself into a corner, so it may just also lose traction and jump around, because you can't put force on the ground, because it's just too soft. Yeah, so it has benefits and it has drawbacks. Nothing is for free. What I like this version a little bit more, but you feel really wobbly at high speeds. Yeah, you don't feel unevenness of the ground, but it's a little bit wobbly. And if you compress it more, you have other drawbacks. Yeah? Then it feels a little bit unnatural, because you have when you have this. Normally you start with like with a Dualtron. When you step on it, it has a small force, and then it gets more with time. Yeah, and here if you pre-compress the suspension with this screw, you start with a middle force, so it may you suddenly don't feel you feel all the smaller bumps. Yeah, and with a middle bump it acts. Yeah, but it's it's more like a trampoline then. Yes, it's because it lacks that if you compress it and you jump and so it doesn't go up with you, but it goes up and then suddenly stops. So like whoop whoop whoop, and it doesn't go like whoop whoop. And if you don't compress the spring, you have this very soft travel, but then it's really soft, yeah, and it makes it harder to jump, because if you uncompressed is like this, you step on it, it's here, and if you jump, the scooter just moves with you, but you can't really make an easy jump onto the border of the street. Yeah, so still I prefer this version and prefer it soft, because it's very comfortable to drive. You don't feel the road deficits, the unevenness, but you have to know that everything comes at a price. The next thing I want to mention that's not so good, and that's the same on the top and on the front and on the rear, are these fenders. They look really cool. So they look 10 times better than the fenders of Dualtron, I think, personally. Yeah. but they don't fend off the rain. Yeah. So if you look closely, maybe you see it down here. You see from here directly onto the spring. Here also, yeah, and on the rear side, it's also it's the same, yeah. So you can easily see the spring. I think that is intended, yeah. But when I zoom out a little bit, when you drive faster, the rain spills up from the tire, and it directly hits you on the back side of your trousers. So it's a fender, and it doesn't fend off the rain. That's the only job it does. So it also looks cool, but it's not a really good fender. And you can see videos of Kaabo already putting an additional thing here, or if someone to make it longer, and this may help, but if you only make it longer and don't suspend it somewhere, it moves even more. Yeah. So if you make a jump or something, what may actually even in this case be that this thing here it goes down, or let's say it compresses here, and you see this small point. This is where this thing, this beacon, touches the fender here, and if you have even more compression, you may press this against the tire. Yeah, I didn't have this, but at least I had when I jumped from the sidewalk. I touched it here, but it's still okay, just not the best thing to use in the rain. Here are the semi-hydraulic brakes, still with the cable. They work really good. They came pre-installed and pre-configured really well. So out of the box, a really good experience. I really liked it. The next thing I want to mention are the motors. As far as I saw it, Kaabo has changed the way what motors they use. Yeah. So what I think is, I haven't had this confirmed. Yeah. But I think the first Mantis units that were sent out, like the review unit to Kaabo, Cram 2, sorry, and J Rider, I think they had different motors that were a little bit faster, but had less torque, and were a little bit lighter. So the difference that this makes is that this scooter is not 27 kilogram, but it is 30 kilogram. Yeah. So one of the main reasons I choose the Mantis above others is that it is lighter, or it was advertised lighter. I knew that this may not have been correct, and it's not. They didn't tell it wrong. Yeah. So if you look on the Kaabo official page, and like KWK from AliExpress, you see that it is advertised here. KWK says it's 30 kilogram, like my unit. Yeah. I think the official data sheet has the weight like 28 something for the smaller LG battery version. So it's okay. Yeah, it's not something I can complain about, but I wished it had been 27 and it was a little bit lighter. The benefit of this, yeah, is that the motor has a higher torque. So it has a really good torque. I really like it. I can go with a slight uphill 50, but it maxes out at 60, at around 60, yeah, and doesn't accelerate much more than, yeah. So I think the previous motor reached 70, but accelerated a little bit lower, because if you have the same power from the controller, you can either put it into more acceleration or into more maximum speed. Yeah, so if you make the motor a little bit different, and they took the more acceleration version, and this is fine for me. 60 is a very high speed, and it's perfectly fine if it just goes 60. Yeah, for me it's okay. The tires here are the very renowned CST 10 times 2.5 inches. I had these on many scooters now. I think they are very reliable. I like the way they work. They are a little bit broader than some other tires, yeah, and this makes it better if you drive over, let's say, you have a tramway and you drive in the line of a tramway. They don't fit in there, and you can't slip in and get railed. Yeah, so many people have accidents because they slide into the rail of the tramway, and this won't happen with these tires. So that's a good thing, and I like them. Yeah, so good choice. You can still, if you want, change the tires. The motors have a splittable rim. Yeah, that's one thing I really miss with the Dualtron Spider, because it's to get these tires on and off. If you don't have these separatable rims that you can just unscrew and take the tire off, if you don't have that, it's a huge pain in the ass. So this is far better. Also, from my experience, these motors, they don't only have a good acceleration, but they also can take a lot of power and and they don't get that hot. Yeah. So if you drive long uphill, and the Dualtron Spider motors would get hot already, these are just warm, so they can take much more power. Really good. I really like it, and I like the decision to change the motors to those with more torque. Next down here is the cover with the lights, yeah, and here the charging port. So this is something I don't like that much. The cover is okay, yeah. I have a different scooter from the version with the single motor. There is not even a gap here. So if you make this, yeah, it has a contact. I don't know why, but it's different among the units. What you can see, I have to switch it on. Wait a little bit. From the lights, yeah. So if I switch it on, you see the light here on the side. You see what it does to the bottom, yeah. So it's lighted blue. You see here the light, but nothing more. So on my hand, you don't see the light, yeah. You see it? I mean, you don't see it. You see this light? You don't see this light. It's very dim, yeah. So it's hard to focus with this gimbal that I have. Sorry. You see that you don't see very much. So if they didn't have these lights, it would be mostly the same. Yeah. It maybe helps a very little bit to be seen on the street, but you don't see anything with it. The lights of the Dualtrons are also not that helpful, because they mostly illuminate the front wheel. But at least if you don't have anything else, yeah, at least they help you a little bit to illuminate the street in front of you, and they're about 5 to 10 times more stronger than the Kaabo light. Yeah, the only strong light is the thing on the side, and it's blue. It's like, yeah, a child toy, but yeah, I would have preferred to have good front lights, and you don't have that. Here on the bottom, is the one single, I switch off the light, yeah, so, whoop. The one single charging port. This is also something that I would have really liked from Kaabo, to have more than one port, yeah. You have it on the UpGo series, you have it on the Dualtron series. Why not just copy this and have two charging ports, yeah? You only have one. What you will also see, or hopefully don't see, is that these charging ports on a Dualtron, they are always aligned, so that if you look at the pins, yeah, there are two pins up and one pin down, and there's a small gap that's on the top. So if you have the gap on the top, you can always put it in. And here with the Kaabo, it's in any direction. So you may get a scooter where the gap on the connector is on the top, and you can put it in like blind. But you may get a scooter where it is just a little bit tilted. Yeah. This is because of the way it is fixed on the other side. Depending on how they begin to fix it, they can only fix it in a certain angle. So they would have to try many times to get it right, and sometimes they get it right, sometimes they don't. Not really my favorite thing, but it's just the way it is. What I don't really miss is the additional battery port, because it's a nice addition, but you don't really need that. If you have the 24.5 ampere hour version, I think you're pretty fine. Yeah, you very few occasions you need even more, and then you have to find a solution by yourself. What is interesting beneath the deck, yeah, the next thing, the silicone mat on the deck is nice. I'm not sure if I like it more than the grip tape and deck version of a Dualtron. What it really is, it looks more fancy. Let's say it's neutral. I'm not sure if it's better or not. It's easier to clean. That's a big plus. So I really like that. It doesn't hold off water, and you see here, yeah, if you look into the details, water, it's a little bit higher here, and if water is here, it runs in here, it runs in down here and under these screws. I think they used to glue this here. I think they used spray paint, spray glue, and it makes these, yeah, stains. This here was a different glue. So at the start this was glued also on the side, so you didn't even can get to these screws. You had to pull it out. You see here, and this is different on different units. The screw holes are not really aligned. Yeah, so this is not nice. This is but this is also only the case on the front and here on the rear. Yeah, here it is okay on this unit on the rear. I have another one that has the problem on the rear. In the middle it's always fine. Yeah, so I didn't see a unit that had the problem in the middle. But still, why? Yeah, it could have been just aligned. And the next thing that you will see, this one looks pretty good, but most of these screws are a little bit worn out or damaged. Yeah, so this look pretty fine. Yeah, here you see I could get this screw in, but it's a little bit tilted because it's not really, the hole here is not really aligned with the hole beneath it. Yeah, these screws look pretty fine. I have seen others that are damaged more, because just these cross screws, they get worn out over time. And if it's hard to screw them in, like because the hole is not really aligned, the screws really wear. and it would have been better to use hexagonal inlet screws that yeah, they are easier to screw in and screw out without them wearing down. The next thing I want to mention is